Hey folks, Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and we have some even more interesting news and yet another update regarding Tashas Cauldron of Everything. The Dragon Plus article, issue, I guess, number 33, the new generation of Dragon magazine, if you're unfamiliar, has another confirmed subclass and news about a brand new Bladesinger. So I am super pumped. This is a news video, no time for bits. Let's jump right in. Well, maybe if I click the right thing. Here we go. So here is the Dragon Plus article. I'll put a link in the description to this. This is just like dragonmag.com. We'll get you there. So we can click this and we can see what's going on. So we have a guest editor, Howard, and we have our typical stuff, imagining the ampersand, what's going on, stuff about the celebration, stuff about classic Dragon, and this is something we may want to talk about in a future video. Just a summation of Unearthed Arcana feats and subclasses, DM's Guild, Art of the Frost of Icewind Dale, some streaming stuff, and so on. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for In the Works. This is preview content. So our first preview is obviously Tashas Cauldron of Everything. So let's see. There's some stuff in here, but let's see if we can confirm anything else. So, right away, Tasha was an exceptional figure, blah, blah, blah. Witch Queen associated with the Demonomicon. Focuses on the wizard before her Igwilv transformation with some input from her time as the Witch Queen. So it's typically all Tasha, less Igwilv. Okay, and similar to Xanathar's guide, it's a culmination of over a year's worth of Unearthed Arcana, while also bringing together the best game mechanics from a number of other D&D books. So something to consider, folks. A lot of people, I noticed this specifically on the community post that I made on YouTube. But if you're unaware, Unearthed Arcana policy, and I'll see if I can track it down and maybe talk about it in a future video, is basically if it has been out there floating for over a year and it hasn't been published in a book, then it's off the table and not going to be part of future content. It's just something basically left on the design room floor. That's why we didn't get the Brute Fighter. They wanted to publish Brute Fighter in Ravnica, and they chose not to, so instead we got Order Domain Cleric and Spores Druid, and Brute Domain is left, gone, forgotten, never coming back. Same thing with a lot of the stuff we saw in the first round back with Xanathar's. For example, of you commenting about how you wish the Phoenix Sorcerer would make it in. I'm going to say there's a 100% chance it will not be in this book. It will be left by the wayside because it was from 2016. I'll see if I can turn that up. I'll also see if maybe I can't inquire with the folks from Wizards and say, hey, can you just point me to where it says and confirm that that is 100% true so that I can put all of this to rest. All right, anyway, back to this. Players and DMs will find new artifacts and non-common magic items, including magic tattoos from Unearthed Arcana. So importantly, all of the new magic items we've technically received from a source book like Xanathar's were common magic items. This is specifically stating new non-common magic items, therefore uncommon, rare, and so on. The magic tattoos from that Unearthed Arcana, which is great. The book also includes the official implementation of the rules for Sidekicks, which first appeared in the Essentials kit. And there are a number of ready-made puzzles for DMs to drop into their campaigns. All right, customizing your origin. So this is more about the legacy system. This rules allows you to take the ability score bonuses of your race and apply them however you like based on the origin of you have imagined for your character. So we know right out the gate, it's going to let us decouple ability scores from our race. So that means we can pick and choose any ability scores we want. Okay. The same rule also provides guidelines on changing certain elements of your race. It's all about digging into the fact that adventurers are exceptional. The race options as written in the PHB are Western high fantasy archetypes. If you want your character backstory to diverge from that archetype in significant ways, there are now some very simple rules for you to make those changes. Many players embrace these high fantasy archetypes, yet for other players, having the character differ from the archetype is what draws them to that character. And we want to make sure that our rules make it just as possible to take that path as to follow the archetype. So what this means is it's not going to be like I talked about in the last video where I don't think where you can super min-max and pick different pieces from all the best pieces from all the best races and make your one super race with the ability scores that match. It says there are some guidelines about changing certain elements of your race. So, could you be a human with dark vision? Possibly. Could you be an elf without dark vision and proficiency in perception and not having trance? Maybe. It sounds like it's going to obviously let you swap ability scores, no issues there. But it might give you, like, say a point, maybe we'll call it a point system, right? And I don't know if it's going to be this in-depth where it'll be like dark vision is 1 point, trance is 2 points, extra damage from a half orc is 3 points, whatever, and you get a total of 7 points, and you mix and match all your points together, which is ridiculously customizable and potentially, again, exploitable, min-maxable. You know, is a feat option from a variant human allowed on something else? Can you swap that, or is that 7 points variant human feat, and then that's how it is? I don't know. But it sounds like you're still going to be, it's not just going to be, because people were like, it's only going to be ability scores, that's it. Well, in the original stuff we were talking about, they said you could drop longsword training for something else. But if you can already drop some inborn racial weapon training, which is very rare compared to only certain races get the ability to use weapons, which is something that one could tangibly argue, right? I'm an elf and you're an elf. We both have dark vision, we both have trance, and so on. I don't go to weapon training, and you do. I go to wizard school, so I learn extra cantrips. That makes sense for me to not learn it. That is justifiable in lore and in roleplay mechanics. However, I don't think it's going to get to that level of minutia, because that would just take up a ton of room in this book, and it's only 192 pages. So I think that fill-in-the-blank concept of the legacy system is just going to be like, you can take so many traits and swap them. All right, back to the article. Artificer class, Artificer class, Kevin, whatever you want to call this, appeared in Eberron Rising from the Last War, and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything we're making accessible outside of that. We've added the fourth subclass, the Armor, so it is, again, I thought this was clear in the last video, but it is 100% a reprint of the Artificer, so it is the base class, plus the 3 existing subclasses, the Alchemist, Artillerist, Battlesmith. And then they're adding in the 4th class, the Armorer, as well as new infusions. So all of the standard infusions you had in Eberron, plus some new ones, probably again some tied to the Armorer subclass. That would make sense. I think players and DMs are really going to enjoy the new art we commissioned for this class, especially the amazingly adorable homunculi. We've already seen that. Check the last video for that information. Unearthed Arcana class variant, feature variants. This is one of my favorites. It's probably yours too. No other Unearthed Arcana published for 5th edition has been as popular as when we created class feature variants. It was so positive, in fact, that most of those options have made it into the book. Some of that material has been refined in a variety of ways, but it's all still going to be accessible. On top of that, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything includes some additional options, so of stuff above and beyond what was in the class feature variants. I think there are some really delightful surprises. The book also contains a new version, quote, new version of the Bladesinger from the Sword Coast Adventurer Guide. Well, that is big. It's a throwaway line at the end of the Unearthed Arcana class feature variants, but that makes me believe it will be significantly revamped. That's what I'm thinking. I hope it's not just as simple as we're flat out removing the elf, half-elf racial restriction, which was already explained that you don't necessarily need to follow it in the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. I hope that that's not what it is. It's not just them removing the racial restriction and that's it. It says a new version. So, again, not saying that I have anything to do with this, because I 100% don't, but I did make a Fixing the Bladesinger video that I put out. You can go check it out. It's on the channel. Maybe I'll put a link in the description if you want. And it was me saying, I really like the Bladesinger a lot. It's really good. It has some flaws, and a lot of people argue, and I get it, that like it's super powerful, but it doesn't know what it wants to do. It doesn't know if it wants to be a melee wizard or a wizard, a melee fighter with wizard spells, or a wizard with some melee capabilities. More often than not, you're better just using it as a protection oh shit button rather than actually being in melee. Really, it's a better just safety net as a wizard. So I'm hoping that that means a complete overhaul of that class. Subclass. We'll see. Group patrons. We've taken Eberron from Last War's group patrons, taken the notion and fleshed it out. so that it works for any D&D setting. For example, Eberron used a newspaper as one of its group patrons. Not all D&D worlds have newspapers. There's still a little bit of overlap in patron lineup. Eberron had an academic institution as an option, and in this book we have the Academy. But we need to explore a set of patrons that work no matter where your adventures take you. It also provides a special feature for parties which decide to serve a group patron. Because of their common bond, they are able to give each other advantage on certain checks a number of times per day for a little extra oomph. So that's cool. That's background built-in stuff. Again, this is adding, I will say that this whole book is optional, right? So consider that. The book is optional. You don't have to use it. But this is adding, doesn't that kind of sound like it's adding in a little bit more power, right? If you're going to get benefits for a group patron, you can give people advantage if they have the same patron. Sounds like it's boosting the power. This is not to any extent what we had in 3.5, but it's reminding me more of like, we're adding more and more player options. Like we're going to add the whole, tome of battle book towards the end and completely revamp martial characters. Give me a little bit of those vibes. Sidekicks, playtest feedback on Sidekicks was very clear. Everybody loves them. They'd like them to be even simpler. I wouldn't have said that myself, but I do love them. For those reasons, we really leaned into making them as simple as possible. Sidekick rules allows players to build an NPC, so now you're basically just building a character who joins the party. This is done by taking a stat block with a low CR and applying a sidekick class to it. A DM might also use these rules to create an NPC they control who doesn't necessarily follow around the adventuring group. There's a tremendous amount of flexibility. I'm down. Flexibility is good. Artifacts. Now we're going to have some new information here. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything has a selection of new artifacts. Some are classic artifacts returning to the game along a few brand new items. It would be remiss of us to not include the Demonomicon of Igwilv. We talked about that myself, so that's in there. We also bring back the Mighty Servant of Luco, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm pretty sure. And the Crook of Rao? I don't know. One new item is the artifact version of the Taraka deck. We've talked about that. This deck has been used to capture beings of evil. The risk associated with using its powers is that the spirits trapped inside might escape, and then you may have to go and recapture them. That's a great example of how the best artifacts can also be powerful plot devices, generating adventure in addition to being a reward. We heard a little bit about the supernatural environments. This expands on it. We thought it would be fun to design a number of areas that have been transformed by magic in various ways. For instance, these environments might be enchanted springs or magic trees, and we've created a whole new region that's haunted by ghosts, as well as another reason where magic itself started to unravel. We delve into them in detail, giving DMs guidelines on how these sorts of phenomena can function in a campaign. My favorite art in the book is in that section. This is Jeremy Crawford talking, by the way. And then puzzles. Puzzles have always been an element in D&D. Some DMs are great at coming up with them, and some have a challenging time creating engaging puzzles. With that in mind, we've created ready-to-go puzzles that can be dropped into almost any adventure. These are designed to give your players a change of pace by presenting a new type of problem that needs to be solved with a different type of teamwork. To pull this off, we partnered with designer, I think it's Elisa Teague, who's an amazing puzzle designer. She wrote all the puzzles that appear in this section, which is in the chapter for Dungeon Masters. And then it just says, these are the components for Tasha's Hideous Laughter. I might have missed that. It was something about feather and tart probably at the start. Hold on to those tiny tarts and wave a feather in the air. Yeah. So that's it, folks. That's what I wanted to go over. Let me know in the comments if you want me to go through the rest of the Dragon Plus release. I used to do this. I used to do Dragon Plus reviews where I would just review the newest issue of Dragon Plus. That was a long time ago. The channel didn't have a lot of views, so there wasn't a lot of interest in that kind of a thing. There is some other news and interesting bits contained in this article, so throughout the rest of it. So if you're interested, let me know. Maybe I'll finish up that. But I wanted to cover all of the new Tasha's Cauldron of Everything stuff, right? This is what everyone wants to hear about. This has driven up the analytics on the channel insanely over the past couple days because it's new. And there's some very exciting stuff in there, right? The new version of the Bladesinger, the couple new magic items, the confirmation, again, even further, that Unearthed Arcana class feature variants is there, plus new ones. A ton of really good stuff is going to come in this book, folks. So expect full-blown, in-depth coverage from me as soon as this book releases. As fast as I can possibly get it to you, I will. That being said, be on the lookout for more cool stuff on the channel. Speaking of puzzles, I just got this sweet book of puzzle encounters from Wally DM, so I'm going to be reviewing that in the future. I got my Eldritch Foundry Mini that I built during Gen Con. Plus, look at this, comes in a metal case. So I'm going to be reviewing that. And as a reminder, I still have a giveaway going on to get a copy of Mythic Odysseys of Theros, the limited edition cover. So there'll be a link in the description for that as well. Thank you again to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to all of you for subscribing to the channel. Again, if you haven't, I'd really appreciate it if you did so. I will see you all next time.